get the video going. Okay. And it's a little slow sometimes to get things done with Zoom. I apologize for the delay. Why is it doing this? No, my screen's gone. Oh, come on, man. Excuse me, let me just sort this out. Refuses to give me the big picture, as they say. I can't see what's going on. Now that is just weird. That is weird. Okay, can you see that?
I see hello, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll get started then. It's not working right. It may have something to do with my screens. Okay, that's fine. Just a minute. Let's just see if I can make that. There we go. Okay. I beat the gremlins, I think. Now what's going on? Oh, come on. I just don't know what the heck this thing's doing today. Just 1 second, I will get it. No, it's disappeared. Oh, come on. I have no idea what it's now doing. Okay, I'm absolutely right. There we go. See that?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's really quite bizarre, to say the least, of what it's doing. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's move on now. So I'll skip through all of this. So I guess all of you know who I am. If you don't, here's kind of who I am. The only reason really to have the slide is essentially if you don't already have it, write down or note my email address down at the bottom. Unfortunately, it's a very long one. I'm sorry, but I've had it many years. So it's Jeff_Calvarisky@earthlink.net. You'll need that email because at the end of this, as I always do on the classes, I will ask you to send me an email just telling me that you were in the class and asking for the slides for mention the word class. I know which class it is, and I will send you all of these slides so that you you've got it for your, for future use and to make notes and so on. Okay, so let's talk about Microsoft Word. So we'll start at the beginning and say, what is Word? Okay, the very beginning. Well, Microsoft Word is called a word processor, right? Piece of software called a word processing or word processor. And as the name suggests, it's an application, a program, software program that replaces the typewriter. Of course, the typewriter is long gone, but this was the original software or its predecessors. Microsoft Word was not the first piece of word processing software, but it's certainly the most successful one. All the rest are pretty much been either wiped out or they're small by comparison. And so word processor basically allows you to work with words in many languages. Initially, Word only worked for English, but now I think it handles, 30 or 40 different languages, including languages where you write from right to left and top to bottom, different alphabets, Russian alphabet, Arabic alphabet, Hebrew alphabet, Chinese alphabet, and so on. You can do all of that. I've actually done some work with Word where I had to have some of the text in a different language that where it went from right to left. While doing the English stuff, which went to left to right, and that was pretty interesting. And trying to get Word to understand that some of it went from left to right and some of it went to right to left. But besides that, it really does a lot of very useful things. So first of all, it allows you to type exactly like a typewriter. It automatically checks your spelling and optionally can check your grammar. So it eliminates typos, and it even find some typos where the word is still a word, but the sentence doesn't make sense, right? If you use the wrong word, even though it's a correct English word, it will often pick that up. Or if you've used the wrong verb, you say, I isn't, it'll pick that up and say, wait a minute, I isn't is wrong English, right? I am not, or we isn't, we are not. It'll pick those kind of things up. And it'll sometimes even give you suggestions for better ways to say things, more consistent English and better quality of English. But other than that, it lets you do whatever you want. The most important, it allows you to format what you type. So on a typewriter, basically you type letters, that's it, right? You hit the A, it types an A, you hit the B, it types a B, and so on. With a word processor, it's doing a lot of the stuff that an expert typist used to do, which is to format it, to make it look right. In fact, it can do stuff that pretty much no human typist or typing person can do. It's too complicated. And yet, by just simply pressing a button, Word will do it for you. It will make things bold, it will make them italic, it'll justify on the right, justify on the left, allow you to center stuff in the middle of the page, and so on and so on and so on, right? Allow you to number your paragraphs, and if you add in a new paragraph, it'll automatically renumber it for you, and so on. Stuff that was hard to do for a typist. I remember in my early days, I used to be in consulting, and I would dictate a report. You remember those little recording devices we had, and I would dictate the report, and then I'd give it to the typist, and she would spend many hours typing it, and then I'd get it back. And then I decide that on page 1, I'd like to take the 3rd paragraph and delete it, and take the 4th paragraph and move it up between paragraphs 1 and 2. And I send that back to her, and she was never very happy because she had to redo the whole thing, right? Everything had to be redone. With Microsoft Word, that's trivial. You can move stuff around. So you can take text, paragraphs and words and so on, and move them as if they were cups on your desk, right? You can include graphic images, photos, diagrams, even movies, even videos into documents. But mainly photographs or diagrams are really simple to create and to put into documents. Naturally, you can save your documents so that they are there when you come back tomorrow, and you can bring it back. You can restore the documents. You can obviously print them out. It takes care of the printing for you. You can copy and paste standard text. So if there's things that let's say you're doing a newsletter for your church club or your tennis club or something. There's a lot of stuff that's the same from one month to the next. You can just copy it in. You don't have to retype it, and lots of more stuff. All of which I will do my best to show you. So here's some of the more detailed things you can do. You can create documents from square one, and we're going to do that today. You can format documents, you can change the way they look and so on. You can edit them, you can change the text, you can change words, you can delete words, you can correct spelling errors and so on. You save the documents and you can print. You can create all kinds of documents. So Word doesn't really care, and it has standard formats built in for letters, correspondence, shopping lists, recipes, business letters, brochures, flyers, legal document. It has standard layouts for all of those things. So it's pretty good at that. So if you're creating, for example, a brochure, It has a standard layout for brochures, and you can start with their layout and modify it to yourself. So it's got more than just typing, but it allows you to do things in a particular way. It's great for things like I said, business letters, resumes. You know, in the days when we were looking for a job, it was a pain to type a resume. Here with Microsoft Word, you have a standard resume. It gives it to you. The layout's all beautifully set up, and all you have to do is type in your own information. So it's very powerful indeed. One of the most powerful pieces of software there are. Okay, so in order to use Word, we need one of two things. And I'll give you information on the differences between them, but there are essentially two kinds of Microsoft Word. And to all intents and purposes, for our need, they're pretty much the same. The one is you buy Microsoft Word, you buy Microsoft Office, and you put it on your PC. So Office now is available for PC, it's available for your iPad, it's available for your Android tablet, it's even available for Mac computers. So there used to be a time when Microsoft said that we'll never ever over our dead bodies before we put our software on an Apple computer, and they would spit on the ground when they said Apple. Well, of course, those days are long gone now, and there are versions of Word and Excel and all the other programs in the Microsoft Office suite of program, and they work on all of those. So that's one way to do it. You just buy it when you get the computer. Some computers come with it installed already. The other one is if you haven't got it and you don't want to spend the money, there's actually a free version now. Well, let me say there's two ways to get it. Just let me go back. When you buy it, you can buy the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel. And it used to cost $150 or something. I don't remember that, which is a lot of money, but really not a lot for what you're getting. Or these days, with Microsoft Office, you can essentially rent it from Microsoft for about, I don't know, $5 a month, and $5 or $6 a month. And then they automatically update it for you. You never have to pay for updates and so on. And it's a lot less painful than having to lay out $150 or $160. So that's the one way to get it. And then there's another way, which is really interesting. You can actually get Word and Office for free. And I never ever thought I would be saying that, because for most of the last 30 years, the word Microsoft and free did never appear in the same sentence. Microsoft didn't get as big as they are and as successful as they are by giving anything away. But for some reason, they decided only about a year or two ago to essentially give you Microsoft Office for free. And I'll just mention it to you. If you want to go that way, send me an email. I'll give you more details. When we had the in-person classes at Benson, I used to show everybody how to do it. We don't have time for that now, but all you have to do is go to the following website on the internet, www.office.com. Office.com, easy to remember. If you go to office.com, in the top right-hand corner, they make it very confusing, so be careful. They don't want to give you for free. They prefer you to go somewhere else. But at office.com, there's a button somewhere in the top right-hand corner, and you click on it. And basically, you now have access to Microsoft Office through your browser. So you don't even have to install any software in your computer. It's all in the browser, right? The browser is what you use to go to the internet. Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Mozilla Firefox, they're all really the same thing. Chevys and Fords, they do the same thing. And so from now on, you can then edit documents, write documents, print documents, all the rest. And it's essentially in your browser. There's now no software at all. Another advantage of going that route is all the information. The obvious question would be to say, where are my files stored? Where are my Word documents stored? And Microsoft automatically stores them for you in the cloud, which means on one of their servers. They're giving you free space on their servers, which is good news because you can never run out of space. They've got so much space. B, it's free. And C, it's always backed up, so you can never lose it. Whereas if you got everything on your own computer, if your computer got stolen or just simply broke, doesn't work anymore, it's possible you could lose everything. But now it's stored by Microsoft, and so not only is it always available, but you can get to those documents from anywhere. So if once everybody's vaccinated and we're traveling again, and you go to California, and you haven't brought your computer with you, you can get another computer, you can borrow someone's computer, and you go out into the cloud and use the browser, and all your documents will be there. anywhere in the world, not only in California, anywhere in the world, which is kind of amazing. So what we've got here is essentially the big version of Word, you know, the one I said that you actually have to buy, either buy the whole thing lock, stock, and barrel, or $5 or $6 a month. And I think that $5 or $6 a month actually allows you to use it on about 3 or 4 different computers. So, you know, if you do have, you know, other people, they can use it as well, and there's no extra charge for it. So basically, we start off, and the first time we'd open it up, for example, it will say, well, I don't have any documents. This is the first time you're doing it. So it'll open up to this screen called New. In fact, if you look down the left, you see this big blue column here on the left. There's Info, New, Open, Save, blah, 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 all the way down. Those are the primary functions of Word. So info is just information about Word, which version you've got and all that, doesn't matter. New says, I want a new document. I'm starting from square one. I'm writing a new document, and we'll talk about that in a second. Open says, I want to open an existing document. So I already got a document. I wrote it yesterday. Open it up because I want to either print it today, or I want to edit it and correct it or change it or whatever. Save and save as, we'll talk about those, but that's to save your information on the paid version of Word. It'll save it on your computer. You can save it into one of your folders on your computer. You can have a folder called correspondence or something, and you can save it in there. Or you could have a folder called brochures, and let's say you've done a brochure, but you've got a business, or you're helping somebody with their business, or a newsletter. You could have a brochure called newsletter. You could save it in there. Print is obvious. Share allows you to share the document with other people. So you can actually, by clicking share, it will literally send a copy of the document over email to somebody else. So you might want to share, you know, you've written something and you either want to share it with your publisher because you're going to write a book, or you're just sharing it with one of your children, your husband, your wife, a friend, whatever. You can share that. Export, I won't bother with. Close is, I'm done, right? Close for the day. Close out. Tomorrow I'll start up again, right? And then accounts and options, we won't worry about that at the moment. So we're looking at new. And when you do new, it says to you, okay, here's various kinds of new documents you can have. First one on where, you know, where the little cursor is over there is a blank document. And that's 99.9 times out of 100 what you want to do. I want a blank document. Give me a blank sheet of paper. It's like putting a sheet of paper into your typewriter. The other ones down here, and you can't see all of them because I didn't have enough space on the screen, where you see AA and title and so on. Each of those is a different kind of document. Either a research paper, let's say you're writing a research paper for college. It'll have a document formatted already for a research paper, or a brochure, or a business document, or a resume, or so on. But mostly, I'm just going to click on, all I have to do is double click on this blank document, and bingo, opens up a blank document. And this is what you see. So this is the main screen of Microsoft Word. It looks, besides the fact that there's just a big white space, which we can easily understand, the rest of it, if you look at the top, looks as complicated as a Boeing 737's cockpit, right? With buttons and pictures and weird symbols and so on. But we're actually going to show you that, in fact, it's pretty simple to use. I guess it's the same as, you know, if you're a pilot, the Boeing cockpit is pretty easy because he or she knows how it works. And when we look in there, it just looks like a confusing mess of dials and buttons and so forth. So here we go. The top part of that screen, where all there over here, all these funny looking symbols are, is called the ribbon. So Microsoft, when they started this in about 2016, so this is actually Microsoft Word version 2016. It has been updated and modified since, but they haven't had a major change. I understand that there is a Microsoft 2020 or 2021 coming out soon that will have some big new features. But Microsoft has sort of moved away from big changes all the time. You know, they if it works, they're kind of leaving it. They may add, you may get a new version that adds a few things, but the basic layout and the way it works is not going to change anytime in the near future, absent some major change in technology, which I can't imagine. So first of all, you'll see across the top here, across the top, you'll see File, the white letters on blue, File, Home, Insert, Design, Layout, references, mailings, review, and tell me. Those are the primary functions. So those ones across the top are exactly what we saw on the previous screen down the left. You remember we had that bar, and we had file, we had home. Well, we didn't have home, but we had home, and so forth. So these are the primary things that you can actually do. Okay, we'll come to the details as we move forward. And then if you click on any one of these, if you clicked on home, which is, you can see home is sticking up here like a little folder tab, it's sticking up. I'm on the home tab right now. But if you clicked on insert, you would get a different ribbon, right? It would have different functions. So exactly like we were saying about these, our schedules, instead of having one giant, when it started out, Word had, it had 100 functions in it. And you had to know how to find, I want to do function number 37. You had to know how to get there, right? It was really complicated, exactly like your 35-page schedule that you get now. So what they did when they redesigned it like this is they designed it so that each of those tabs has certain functions. So if I don't need the functions under, let's say, layout, then I don't have to see them, right? It's the same like saying, if I only want to see the computer courses on the schedule, I don't need to look at all the rest, right? And I'm going to talk to them about doing exactly this, something along these lines. So you'll get a much simpler, you could get a much simpler schedule that would have tabs, and you would click on the tab you want. If you're not interested in the exercise or the art or whatever else they got, you don't go there, right? You click on the computer courses and vice versa. So 90%, probably better, 98% of what you will do when you use Word is on this tab, home. That's why it's called home. It's the most, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, this is back to Kansas. This is home. This is where we spend most of our time, right? And then, so all I'm really going to teach you about are all those funny, complicated looking pictures and icons and strange symbols on this home screen. And once you understand those and you've practiced it a little bit, and it's not that hard to do, you will be able to do 95% of what a professional typesetter or professional typist could do, right? And I'm also going to show you some tricks of the trade that I see all the time that professional typists don't know. So I often get like a legal document, from a lawyer's office. Now, those are experts. That's all they do, those people, is they type legal document. And often I can tell by looking at it, the document's correct and it says what I want. I'm selling my car or selling my house or whatever it might be, but they don't understand how powerful Word is. And so people without understanding all its capabilities do it the hard way. And I'm going to show you a lot of tricks where Word will do it for you the easy way, right? How you can get things to look incredibly good and perfect and with almost no effort on your part. So any questions on that? So this over here is the ribbon. It's called a ribbon because it looks like a ribbon across the top. You'll see that all of these things have a very logical set of meanings. By the way, if there are any questions, just ask. This is not a university class. I'm happy. It's a discussion. So if you have any questions or you didn't understand what I said, I'm always happy to repeat it and say it better. Don't hesitate to stop me at any time. So here's the ribbon. Here's the ribbon sort of brought up in size, and it looks very confusing. And we're going to see that it isn't. So the first thing I want to tell you is that in the ribbon, you'll see these vertical gray lines here. You see, here's a gray line, and there's another vertical gray line, and then there's another vertical gray line over here. They go from the bottom to the top. And on the left of each gray line is a word. So this gray line says next to it, it says clipboard. This one, says font. And so everything between the two gray lines is related to the font, right? We'll see what that means in a moment. And everything between these two gray lines is related to paragraph. So it says, that's if I want to change the way a paragraph looks. And over here on the right, and it goes on to the right, there's a little bit more, but you don't need to see all of it. This says styles, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And way on the left, from this gray line to the left side, it says clipboard, okay? So each of those is now a separate thing. They're dedicated to specific functions, okay? And we've spoken about the tabs already, so there are my tabs. And as I said, this is explaining it. Each tab has got related commands. So all the commands in home are related to typing, just making the letters and the words look good. All the commands under layout are more designed for how you lay out the page, right? Do you want it vertical, or you can turn the page sideways, all that kind of stuff, right? Mostly we don't bother with that, so we're not even going to go there, but it's all there. And once you understand this ribbon, it won't take you more than a few minutes to go and play with the other tabs and see what they've got in there, right? So there is one section, see that? From that gray line to that gray line, I put a green box around it, and that's all related to the font, okay? So now in each of these also, I'm just going to mention this once and we move on. You'll see there's this funny little, looks like a square in the bottom right-hand corner with an arrow pointing down to the right. You see that, where the blue arrow is pointing? Now, in each case, you'll see one next to clipboard, you'll see one next to font, you'll see one next to paragraph, and so on. All that little arrow means, if you click it, it will bring up another menu, right? So here's this menu that just pops up with more information. So if what you want to do in font isn't here, you can click on that and get a whole lot more options. You will find you very seldom have to do that. Microsoft has done a remarkably good job that in this little area here, that's marked font between those two vertical gray lines, is pretty much everything you need to do to type beautifully. And ditto for paragraph, those are your two main areas, and you'll very, very seldom need that little arrow. But I want to mention it to you because that's in general the way things work in Word. If there's an arrow, when you click the little arrow, it will normally open up more options. So for example, at the top here, it says Calibri body. You see what it says there? That's the type of font. It's just the name of the font. The name doesn't mean anything at all. It's just the name. Calibri is a particular font. It's the way these letters look over here, where it says customize your text. That's that specific layout, that specific font. That's called Calibri. Now you'll see it next to Calibri, there's a little arrow there. Can you see the little arrow down? And if you click on that little arrow, the down arrow, it will open up downwards a whole lot more fonts. There are probably 60 or 70 different fonts. Mostly we don't care, but if you're doing something fancy like a brochure or a newsletter, you might want to use bigger fonts, fancier fonts, different kinds of fonts and so on. And if you go and look at a magazine, say like People magazine, you'll see that they've used different fonts, sometimes to highlight things and that. If you're just typing a letter or you're typing a shopping list, you don't really need that. But in each case, so next to Calibri, you'll see the number 11. That's just telling you the size of the font. 11 doesn't mean anything, but 11 is bigger than 10 and 11 is smaller than 12. That's it. So if you don't like font 11, size 11, you just click on the little arrow next to it and a little menu will pop up and it'll go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 20, all the way to, I don't know, 75, right? You can have huge font. So I've used Word, for example, if I had guests and I wanted to put a name tag, a name card for each guest, right? So it's really easy to do that. You just type the names out, choose a nice big font because it's obviously going to stand on the table and people want to see that, you know, this is Mary and Tom and Sue and so on. And you can print them out and just cut them out and stick them on the table. And people have said to me, wow, you know, how did you do those great place names? You know, it's as simple as you know, drinking a cup of coffee. It's really with Word. It's too simple even. So here we are. This is what's brought up. If we press the little arrow on paragraph, you'll see this little menu will just pop up, and it's got a whole lot more things in, which I'm not going to talk about right now. I don't want to confuse you, but you don't ever have to see that if you don't need it. Now, once you press the menu, a down arrow like that, and this menu is popped up, how do you think you get rid of it? Once I've used it or I've looked at it, now I want to go back to where I was. How would I get rid of it?
Click the X.
Sorry? You can click the X, exactly. You see the X over there. Or as with many of these menus, just press the escape key. And the one on your keyboard in the top left-hand corner, this is the usual use of the escape key. The escape key is normally to escape from things, right? And it doesn't always work. There are areas where it doesn't work. But here it does work. So if you press the escape key, that little menu will disappear. Or you press the little X in the top right-hand corner and it vanishes. Either way works great. So one more thing I'll tell you before we start looking at the at the details of the menu. You'll see that there's now this varies depending on your version, slightly varies depending on your version of Word. But yeah, it says tell me what you want to do, and there's a sort of light bulb there. The light bulb, you know, is kind of like, you remember in the comics, you always have a light bulb when somebody gets an idea. This is, Word used to come with a manual that was about that thick. You know, it was like your car manual, right? Which nobody ever read, and it cost them a lot of money to produce. It was a waste of time. Now, what they've done is they say, if you don't know how to do something in Word, you can click here on this little light bulb, or where it says, tell me what you want to do, and you can type in what you want to do. I would like to add page numbers, right? I don't know how to put page numbers on the page. I want to number each page. You click on that and just type in there, insert page numbers or page numbers. A little menu, one of those little boxes will pop up, and it'll tell you everything you want to know about where you can do the page numbers, how to do them, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like the whole manual, but only the bits that you want. So even though there are hundreds of other things that used to be in the manual that you never looked at, so it was a waste of money and a waste of paper, this is, if you need it, it'll tell you, and if you don't need it, you don't have to go there. So that's a kind of a useful one to see, okay? Up above here, next to where it says the word Word, is a strange thing. It's got some name, .docx. And that is the actual document you're working on now. So the first time you save a document, the first time you save it, it will ask you for the name that you want to call it. It doesn't know what you want to call it. So you could call it Letter to Mary Sue, or Brochure for February 2021, if I'm doing a brochure, or a newsletter for 2021 or whatever. And all names of files, this is actually a file name, are as many letters as you want, like in the front. So you can call it, you know, letter to Dr. Smith on and on such and such a date. Then there's a period, a dot, and then the word docx. So docx just means this is a Word document. It used to be just doc. And then for some reason, Microsoft added this strange X at the end. But whether you call it a dot or a .x doesn't make any difference. But never mess around with that. If you deleted that or changed that from docx, the Windows will no longer know that this is a Word document. That's how Windows knows. It looks at a file, and if it's got .docx at the end of its name, it says, aha, that is a Word document. And if you clicked on that name somewhere, and I'll show you how we do that, it'll automatically open the document for you in Word. So most times you don't even have to open Word yourself. Just by clicking on A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, whatever the name of the document is, .docx, Word, the operating system, Windows, is very clever, and it says, aha, that's a Word document. First, I'll open up the Word program, and I'll bring that document in, and then you're ready to go. So that's a very useful thing. There will be many times when you will not remember necessarily what I told you, or you've just forgotten how to do something. That's where you type it in. Tell me what you want to do. And it's in English. You don't have to do it in any computer language. So you can just say there, tell me how to put page numbers in. Although most of that it won't bother with, just put page numbers. And it will give you relevant information about page numbers, or how to make the text bigger, or how to change the font. Change the font. Let's say I want to change font. I can't remember. I showed you how to do it on the previous screen. We'll see it again. But let's say you can remember. Just type in there, change font, and Word will tell you how to do that. Okay. So here's an example, for example. I typed in there, add page numbers. You see that? Next to at the top here, next to the light bulb, add page numbers. It says, well, here's a whole lot of things you can do with page numbers. You can add them, you can remove them, and so on. And then you'll notice there's a little right arrow next to add page numbers. And if you clicked on that, you will see, we'll go to the right, and you'll see a new little menu. And it says, where do you want the page numbers? Top of the page, bottom of the page, page margins, in the current page. You can format the page numbers so they look the way you want. Page numbers can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or they could be in Roman numerals, I, and so on. If you want it, you know, whatever you want. They're all kind. So pretty much, mostly what I would be doing was putting a page number. So our page number, top of the page. And if I just clicked on here where it says top of page, it gives me the exact detail of where to go in the ribbon to put the page number at the top of the page, right? Okay, so let's get down. So what I started with, unfortunately with Zoom, it doesn't, this was easier when we were working at Benson itself. Zoom doesn't sort of allow me to show you pictures like this and at the same time be working in a different document like Word. So I've got a document here, which is actually a very complicated document as documents go. It's much more than a letter or a shopping list or anything like that. It's an actual legal document, right? And I'm going to show you how it was done and just how easy it was to make it look as professional as this. So it's a professional services agreement. It's an agreement between a consultant and a company, and the consultant is going to do certain work for the company. Whatever is in there is actually irrelevant, doesn't matter, right? It's really what it looks like that we're going to work with. So before we do that, right at the beginning, I want to start with, if you look at so let me go back a couple of slides. No, okay, it doesn't matter. It's going to take too long to get there. I want to go back to the very first one. So we'll stay here. If you looked at the entire screen, in other words, when we first typed on new, right, and we had a blank screen, right down at the bottom of the screen, the very bottom, I've highlighted it here. On the left, you will see this page page 1 of 7 or page 2 of 3. It'll tell you how many pages you've got in this document, and you're now on page 1 of 7 pages. So that's a useful thing to see. Right next to it, it tells you how many words there are in the document. For most of us, that's completely useless. But I used to write a column, a weekly column for a publication that went out every week, and I only had 300 words that I could write. It was a very short column. It had to be really pithy. So what I would do is I would just write and write and write and write. And at the end, I would look at that and say, okay, you've written 800 words. Well, I know that that's way too much. So now I could start cutting it down until it got into the 300 word or pretty close to that limit. Mostly you're not going to care whether it's got 2,838 words or whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. So, but that's just useful on the bottom left. On the bottom right of the screen, it shows you this kind of strange set of icons here. And you can see you've got a minus sign, a long line, and a plus sign, and the next to it, it says 100%. That's telling you how big the document is on your screen. It's normally showing 100%, which is exactly what you would expect, right? This is what the document will look like if I print it. But I can actually either change that 100%, I can overtype it and make it say 75%, and suddenly the whole thing will get smaller. It's not changing the document, it's just changing the way you look at it, right? So it will still print the same way, but sometimes maybe the screen is, your normal screen is shorter than the full size of a document. So if you wanted to see the whole page, you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to scroll up and down. By changing that to say 75%, the text will get smaller, but I'll be able to see the whole page. Maybe I want to see the layout, that everything's laid out nicely. So you can either just overtype that 100% here, or you can grab this little slider bar in the middle. You see it's a slider bar? I'll tell you what that means in a second, right? But all we got to do is, if you grab this little bar here and drag it to the right, it'll get bigger, or drag it to the left and it'll get smaller, right? And how do you grab this bar? Does anybody know how you grab something in Windows? You actually hold it and then you can move it.
Yeah, with a mouse.
How do you do it with a mouse? Correct. You use the left mouse button.
Yeah.
So the one with this finger, or your first finger, you point at it and hold it down.
Yes.
So when you hold down the mouse button, that's telling Windows, I want to grab this thing. In the old days, actually, the cursor, the arrow used to change to a hand like this. It was a hand that was grabbing. They'd taken that away. I don't know why. I thought it was a very good idea. You could actually see your arrow would change to a hand grabbing it. And now with your finger held down on the left mouse button, don't take it off. Now you've grabbed this little bar and you can move it to the right, move it to the left, move it to the right, move it to the left. And as soon as you let go the left mouse button, as soon as you let go, it will stop, right? It'll stop changing the sign. So at any instant in time, whatever you've written, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, but you're not actually changing the way the document is going to print out. You're just changing the way you're seeing it on the screen. So that's a useful thing to know. Excuse me, let's go back here. Okay, so let's go back to this big document. And here we'll see that there are, I'm going to use this as the sort of base to teach you pretty much everything we need to know in that ribbon. So if we look at it, mostly we've seen lots of documents. We read newspapers, we read magazines, we read books, we read all kinds of stuff. And probably none of us have ever looked at the text of what is actually there. You read it, you make sure it makes sense, but we never sort of look at the words. And you're going to show you now, when we start looking at the words, we see a whole lot of interesting things. So what can we say at the top here? It says professional services agreement. What do you see that's interesting about that text?
It's all in caps and bold.
It's all in caps, number one, and it's
bold.
all in bold, right? What else? There's one more criterion or interesting thing about it. Where is it placed on the page?
Centered.
It's exactly in the middle, right? Now one way you could do that in the old typewriter is you'd have to type a whole lot of spaces on the left and then, measure where it was and get it so you had enough spaces on the left that the thing would appear in the middle. But then, of course, if you added a word in or you took out the word services and it just said professional agreement, it wouldn't be in the middle anymore, right? And you'd have to change the number of spaces on the left. Now, Word, once you've told it you want it in the middle, if you add or take out letters or words, it will automatically adjust the whole thing. So it's always going to be in the middle. Okay, so we said it's in capitals, and in capitals doesn't seem to be that, that fancy. I can always type something in capital just by holding down the shift key, but I'm going to show you the lazy person's way of doing this. And you don't even have to do that, right? You can tell Word that this text that I've typed, I now want in capitals, and instantly it'll change it to capital. This text, I want it all in bold, it'll instantly make it in bold. This text, I want it to be in the middle, it'll put it in the middle. Okay, let's keep going. So you see, if you look at the first line, again, it says professional services agreement is again in capitals, but not bolded this time. On the second line, we'll see the name of the consultant, Joe Blow, is in capitals, and the name of the company, XYZ Inc., is also, excuse me, not in capitals, in bold, and so on. Okay, so what else do you see that's interesting in that first paragraph, right? So there's the paragraph. There's something interesting about it. Well, if you look at it, and this is not the words itself, this is the whole paragraph. You look at it, it's all lined up on the left. See that?
Yeah.
Don't have to do it. And that the typewriter could do as well. But what do you see on the right?
Same thing.
It's also lined up on the right. And with a typewriter, that was pretty much impossible to do. So you can tell Word that I actually want this lined up on both sides. We call it full justification, justified left and justified right. And it automatically has inserted spaces. It's so cleverly that you can't even see them, so that it exactly fills out and ends up in the right margin exactly like this, which is something you will see in books or newspapers and so forth. You don't have to do that if you don't want. If you don't care on the right that it's a little ragged, it stops when it stops, that's fine, okay? But I like to see both sides justified because it looks very professional and it's really simple to do, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. Second paragraph, what do you see about that one? Again, it's justified on the right and the left. What can you say about the first line?
It's indented.
It's indented, like a half an inch or so. The whereas doesn't start on the left, it's been indented. Okay, we'll come to that in how to do that. Oops, sorry. In a moment, I just want you to see the stuff, right? Now also, We come down, the third paragraph is the same, it's indented, it's got some capitals and so on. It's justified on both sides. What about this line here that says services and payment? What's
No.
interesting about that?
No.
Caps and in bold.
Caps and in bold.
And there's it's numbered.
It's got a number, right? Paragraph 1, and then 2 and or clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, you know, of the business document. And it's also indented, right? It's indented, but it's not indented exactly the same as that second paragraph, whereas the one is, you know, sort of in the middle somewhere, but it's indented and it's in bold and it's in uppercase and it's indented and numbered. Now, what about this paragraph down here at the bottom of the screen?
No.
It's indented with letters.
It's now indented with the sub number. So this is sub paragraph A of paragraph 1, right? And what's the next paragraph going to be after this one? Sub paragraph B. And so until I've finished A, B, C, D of paragraph 1, and then I want to start paragraph or clause 2, then it would say 2 and whatever the clause is, payment, right? You know, and it'll say A, the customer agrees to pay on da-da-da-da-da, and so on and so forth. You see that? So you can have 1A, oops, I keep doing that, sorry. 1A, 1B, and so forth. Or you could even number it. There are many ways to number it. Another way to number it would be 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, then 2, 2.1, 2. You can choose any of those, and it's as simple as that. The beauty of this also is that if I added in a new paragraph between, say, A and B, I put in a whole new paragraph, it will automatically renumber it. So the new one would become B, and the one that was B becomes C, or 1.1. Let's say I had 1.1 and 1.2. If I put a new paragraph in between them, that'd go now 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, all done automatically for you. Also, just mentioning, you know, on a typewriter, if I was typing this, let's say we're at the second paragraph here that says whereas X, Y, Z. I would have to know when we're at the end of the line. You remember you had the carriage return and the bell on the typewriter used to go ding, and you hit carriage return and push it back and so on. Well, of course, in Word, you don't have to do that at all. You just type. When you get to the end of the line, Word will know you're at the end of the line. You don't have to do anything. It'll automatically skip over and continue on the next line. So I didn't have to type anything between this word independent and this word contractor. I just typed independent contractor, and it said, there's not enough place on that line for the word contractor. I'll move it to the next line and keep on going, right? There's also these two paragraphs here, by the way, I forgot to mention, there's one more thing for both of them, right? Can you see that there's a blank space between the paragraph, in front of the paragraph? Can you see that?
Yeah, double space.
Blank line there, the blank space. And here there's a blank space. And ditto after, you know, right after services and payment. Can you see the blank line? So
yeah.
Again, you could easily do that just by hitting the return. So the return, the enter or the return key on your keyboard would give you a blank line. But I'm going to show you, if we know how to do things correctly in Word, you don't even have to do that. Word will automatically know, this is a new paragraph. You want a space between the paragraphs, and it'll automatically put the blank line in, or not. You don't have to. Those paragraphs could be next to each other, or they could have two blank lines or whatever. Also, another thing, generally, when you have legal contracts like this, I don't know if you've ever seen a contract, you know, to buy a house or buy a car, or whatever, the lawyers always type on every second line. Have you ever noticed that? You'll see a contract is normally typed with a, so it doesn't go line 1, line. There's a blank line between every two lines, because the lawyers like, you know, if you're reviewing the contract, they cross things out and they want to write new things in and so on. Again, that's called double spacing. This is called single spacing. And to be able to get double spacing from single spacing is a really simple exercise with Microsoft Word as well. It's all in the ribbon. Okay. I'm going to show you another one here, a different kind of document, and I want you to see the differences. And then next time we'll get on to how we can make this happen ourselves. So here's something that comes from like a high school or a college paper on dinosaurs, right? So let's see if we can see anything. Okay, I ask you now, what do you see about this about this document? What do you
It's
see
here.
about the justification?
It's justified on both sides.
It's justified on both sides, exactly. Anything
And
else about the paragraph itself? What about this word dinosaurs?
it's bold.
It's bolded, right? What
And
about next to reptiles? It says note 1.
yes,
It's smaller and up, like
Yeah.
like when you have a note. So it means at the bottom of the page there's something that says note 1 and it tells you more about reptiles or something, right? Okay. What about this word with a squiggly red line under it?
It's misspelled.
So it's the squiggly red line says word is saying, I don't know this word. I
oh,
think
it's
it's misspelled.
It's misspelled.
It's also, can you see it leaning over, right? And
Italics.
that's called italic, right? So italic print, I don't know why italic, maybe in Italy they used to do it like this. I don't know. It's called italic. It's got nothing to do with Italian. The words are tipped over slightly to the right. And that's used normally to either emphasize something or like in this case, it's a word that's not in English. So Microsoft Word has put a squiggly line under it, says, I don't recognize this word. Now, usually that will be because you misspelled the word. So if you spelled group, G-R-U-P, right, you either couldn't spell it or you fat fingered and dropped the O or 2 O's, you'll have a little squiggly line under here. And all that will mean is you go there and either delete the wrong letter or add in the correct letter and so on. And in most cases, Word will actually suggest you what the correct spelling is. So if you type G-R-U-P, it will say, I don't know what this is, but how about group G-R-O-U-P? And you can just click on that without having to type anything. And I'll show you that as well. Next line, what do we see? Line 2.
yeah, it's underline.
Underline, right. Not bolded, not italic, but underline. Again, that's a different way of emphasizing something, right? I've deliberately here used one. I've used bold, I've used italic and underline. One will seldom not mix all of those up. That would be a little confusing. So if you wanted to, point out something or emphasize it, you'd either do italic or underline, but usually not both. But you can. It's as simple as clicking a button, as we're going to see. What do you see on this 4th line here? The one that says consensus places their origin. What do you see there?
Consensus place their origin.
You have another note.
You have another note. You see, so you can take stuff up. Now, as you can make words or numbers or whatever smaller and go up, you can also make them smaller and go down. So if you wrote a scientific formula like H2O for water, the 2 is a little below. So big H, little 2 down below, big O, right? You can do exactly the same thing. Make the letter smaller and go up or smaller and go down. It's absolutely trivial. Very, very simple to do. So there we've got bold, underline, and then the italics, right? And in this case, it says, I don't know this word because it's actually a Latin word. It's, the name of the groups of things called dinosaurs or dinosauria. So you just leave it, doesn't matter. It's not going to print out with a squiggly line. The squiggly line will not appear, right? But the bold will appear when you print it. The italics will appear, the underlines and so forth. All of that text editing will appear like that. We've spoken about that. And so now let's start talking about how we get that stuff to happen. Okay. So first I want to talk to you about this. I'm going to leave clipboard for the moment. I'm looking at the ribbon. So clipboard, I'm going to leave for the moment. We will come back to that. I'm going to look at this one here between the 2 lines that it says font. Now that is font and paragraph are where 95% of what you do is operated from. So they've really reduced it. That's where I spend most of my time. Font is the set of commands, the set of buttons related to the font, to the letter, the actual letters. So it looks very complicated. I'm going to show you that it's not. Firstly, we saw that the sort of open box at the top that says Calibri. I don't know what body is, just Calibri 14. All that's telling me is that's the type of font that I'm using. This is called Calibri, and it's size 14. which the number is kind of strange. It relates back to typography and book printing and so on. All it really means is 14 is bigger than 12 and 12 is bigger than 10. So the number means nothing. You can just choose whatever number, whatever size is good for you. You know, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and it'll handle it itself. So where it says here note 1 and this little 2, you didn't have to make it smaller. It automatically kept the ratio of the size of the font to that smaller note exactly the same. So if you made this font now, the whole font, you took it from 14 to 12, that little note will also change in proportion to the rest of the font. So again, like I said before, if you click on this little arrow over here next to Calibri, a whole list of fonts will open up. So you can try that yourself. Click on it, and you'll see there are, I don't know, 60 or 70 different fonts. Most of it we don't ever use. There are only really 2 important fonts, I think, and I'll just mention that to you, and then we'll look at it in a little more detail next time. Calibri, there are 2 fonts called Serif, S-E-R-I-F, and Sans Serif, S-A-N-S Serif. Sans in French means without. So serifs are the little tiny lines on a little sort of apostrophes on letters. And the main type font, which you'll typically see like in newspapers, is called Times Roman. Again, I don't know what Roman's got to do with it. Maybe it was developed in Italy. I don't know. Times Roman, as all the letters have little, like, so the letter S will have like a little apostrophe on it. And the I has got a little line across the top and a line at the bottom. So the way we would used to print an I when you were in grade school with a dot on top, that's a serif font. It's got serifs. Those little apostrophe type things are called serifs. This is a sans serif font. Sans serif means without serif. So there are no little lines anywhere, right? If you look at, for example, the letter G, okay? That's the only letter in this serif, in this sans serif. Can you see the tiny little sort of apostrophe in the top right-hand side of the circle of the G? Can you see that? It's got the G, and then in the top right, and there's just like a little teeny. That's the only one. Why it's in there, I don't know. But Times Roman has got that on all the letters, and you probably never noticed it. But go look at the newspaper today. Go and look at the newspaper, and you'll see the newspaper is probably Times Roman, and you'll see those little things all over, right? But this font, which is sans serif, has got none of that, except for some reason it's left behind on the letter G. Okay, it's a much simpler font in my mind. It's a much clearer font, but it doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference. How many people actually even notice a change of font, right? Very, very few, unless it's been pointed out to you. So here at the top is I can change the font. So when I'm about to start writing, start typing, Word will choose a font and a size for me, a reasonable font and a reasonable size. I can use that. Let's say it's Calibri 12 or Calibri 14 or Times Roman 12 or whatever, and I just type and I'm as happy as a clam. If I say, no, I don't want this Calibri 14, I got to get a lot of stuff on this page, I need a smaller font, I'll just go to this Calibri 14. Let's say I'm happy with Calibri. Click on the little arrow. You'll see that a whole lot of numbers will appear. It can be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 18, 20. I want 11. Just click on the 11. And now when I start to type, everything will be in Calibri size 11 or Times Roman size 12 or whatever I want. So mostly the defaults, the way it's going to come up automatically will work for you, but you can change that at any time just by clicking on that. Now, if you've already typed stuff, let's say I've already typed this and it was all in this Calibri, and then I have a change of heart and I say, wait a minute, I don't like this Calibri. I would like everything to be in Times Roman, in a different font. But I've already typed all this stuff. So do I have to type it again? The answer is no. The lazy person says, okay, what I need to do is highlight all of this text. Highlighting doesn't mean, using a highlighter like we used to do at college, a red, yellow highlighter. This means just tell Word, this is what I'm looking at. So the way you highlight is you put let's say I want to do the whole paragraph. I will put my cursor here to the left of the D of dinosaurs. Now I want to hold down the left mouse button And all I have to do is hold down the left mouse button and drag my cursor all the way to the end of where I want to be, either the end of the first line, the end of the paragraph, whatever I like, right? And all of that text will sort of change color. It'll either become white on black or black on blue. Some change will occur. And then now all I have to do is go change Calibri body to Times Roman or 14 size to 12, and all of that will instantly change, right? Okay, see that? So you highlight the text and it'll instantly change, right? So I can change text. Now, well, let's just do the bold, underline, and the italic, and then we're done. So if I start typing here and I said, okay, the very first word, let's say I've got a blank screen there. The first word, dinosaurs, I want it bold. All I'd have to do is, you see these three little icons here, B, I, and U. The B is bold. You can see it's bolded. So if I click on that icon, if I just click on this B, all the text I now type from that moment on will be bold. So when I get to the end of dinosaurs, this word, now let's say I don't want bold anymore. How do you think I turn off bold, I unbold?
Click it again.
Click it again. Simple as that. Click it again. Now I get to dinosauria and I'd like this to be italic. How do you think I'm going to do that? Click the I. See the I that, can you see the I sort of leaning over a bit? Like italic, this I in the top left-hand corner. If I click the I, the rest of the word will automatically start leaning over as italic. And when I get to the end, click it again. How did I do underline Triassic period? Before I typed it, I hit the underline. Can you see it's a U and it's actually got an underline up in the top left-hand corner? Everybody see that? So if I click that and now I start typing Triassic period, it will underline it. When I get to the D, I click it again and it stops underlining. So underline, italic, bold, and the font, which is about 80% of what you're ever going to do, we've already done now. That's it. Let's say I wanted to bold the whole paragraph for some crazy reason. I'm going to ask you that question and then we'll break for next time. How would I bold or italicize this whole paragraph?
Highlight it.
Say again?
Highlight it.
So highlight it, put my, let's say it's the whole paragraph, put my cursor to the left of the dinosaurs, hold down the right mouse button with your front finger, your forefinger, hold it down and just drag it across and the text will change color. And now you say, you hit the bold or you hit the italic or you hit the underline and everything that is highlighted, that has changed color will now be bold or underlined or italicized or all of the above. I can do bold and underline, bold and italic and underline. It'd be crazy to do all of that stuff, but you can. Word is perfectly happy with that. You can turn on the bold at any time you like and you can turn it off. You can change the font anywhere you like. So one line could be in one font and the next line could be in a different font. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could certainly do that, right? In other words, these are just like little switches, go on and they go off, right? And if you are actually typing, then let's say when I'm typing this word Triassic period and it's underlined, you will actually see that the U, the underlined U, that little button there will be great, will light up, right? It will light up. So last point then, how did I get this thing to adjust on both sides, right? And here you'll see under paragraph, you see this grayed out button here that's highlighted, right? It's got, if you look at it, that's how the text, so we've got four little buttons there. The one shows you text left aligned. The one in the middle, the second one shows you text centered. The third one shows you text right aligned. And the last one shows you lines that are aligned on both sides. So if I highlighted this paragraph, let's say it wasn't text justified on both sides, all I have to do is highlight the paragraph and click that button, or click that button before I start typing. Either way, that little button here above the word paragraph is exactly what got me this fabulous looking text justification on both sides. Isn't that amazing?
I'm on Zoom. Yes.
So remember the last question then, let's go to the previous one. Back to the contract. Oops, come on, guy. Now, this is just saying what everything that I've been telling you. Come on. Right, so when we're back here, how did I get this word request? So 1A request, how did I get request with a line under it? Just press the button that said underline, right?
Yes.
So either before typing request, I hit the underline button, and then when I got to the period, I pressed it again, or I came back afterwards and I say, you know, I'm looking at this and I'd like request to be accentuated. I want people to, you know, it's an important word. All I would do is highlight the one word request. So put my cursor to the left of the R, hold down the mouse button, drag it to the T, okay? Lift my finger off the mouse button and then hit the underline button, the U with the underline, or B with the bold, or I with the italic. So you can either do bold, underline, italic before you start typing, and then it'll bold all the way until you stop bolding, or you can just type willy-nilly as you would, and then come afterwards and change the things to look the way you want. See that? Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
So everything is now in that in this ribbon bar across the top. So in this first one that is font, is everything related to the font. Okay, so bold, italic, underline, what font you're using, what size font you're using. These few others here we'll talk about next time. In paragraph, it says, how do you want the paragraph aligned? Left aligned, and it's ragged on the right. Centered, so that's how I got the heading centered on that contract. When I wanted to center the heading, I didn't have to do anything. Just type the heading, highlight it, and hit this button over here. See this one? You see that the text looks like it's centered, and it'll automatically center. Or I could have hit that button first, then start typing, and it'll automatically skip to the middle, and it'll continue. As I type, it'll adjust it left and right, left and right, left and right, until it's always exactly in the middle, which is amazing if you think about it, right? And those two things alone, the font and then what I've shown you about so far on paragraph, is about 80% of what you need to get Word to do the job you want. Any questions? I know it's been quite quick, but we will go over it next time. I'm going to spend a lot more time, you know, looking at the detail. The reason
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike, can you kind of tell me what this class is going to cover? My thinking being, if I have to be out and miss a day, I would like to know what I missed and maybe brush up on
good
myself.
question. My way of teaching always is every time I go into the next session, I will always review what we did in the previous session, right? Because I know people forget, or they didn't quite understand it, or they didn't practice it or anything. So I'll always revise, right? So you can essentially miss a couple of sessions and I'll still cover everything. And if you send me that text, that email that I mentioned right at the beginning to my email address, I will actually send you a copy of these slides. So you will have all the slides, the exact slides that you're looking at, you will have them for yourself. You can print them out and you can make notes on them or just use it as a reference.
And that'll show me what we're going to cover doing these, what is it, 4-week session?
It's 4 sessions, right? It's 4 sessions.
Right.
Okay. But I've already,
I wasn't able to get your complete email address. Will you show that again?
Sure. It is, well, let me, if you want to write it down, it's my name, Jeff, _ not the dash, but the underscore. I don't know how that happened, but I got it way back when. Kalwerisky, KALWERIS, as in Sam, KY, at earthlink, one word, earthlink.net. Not .com, but .net.
I think it's under your picture.
It's on the on the second slide under my picture, right? So
Right.
if it's
where your name usually is.
Yeah, it was
Up in your picture.
way back here. Come on. There we go. Right, down there. Okay, see it at the bottom?
Okay.
So just send me an email and mention the class. I know it's Word, not one of the other classes. And I will send you I'll send you all the slides by return mail, right? So you can then either just read them on the screen or you can print them out, or both. They are yours to keep, and it'll have all of this that we're in here, plus of course what we're going to do in the future sessions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a great weekend. Has everybody started being vaccinated already?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, I got mine last week.
Wow.
Did
How
you have a problem getting an appointment?
Yeah, I actually, we're just lucky, managed to get an appointment, because these days you click on the appointment and it's gone. There's nothing there, but I guess dumb luck. So we got the first vaccination last Friday, and now there doesn't yet seem to be a plan to get the second one. So I suppose I've got to go back in and try now to get a second appointment. But as of yesterday, the governor said that if you've had the first vaccination, now they're going to contact us to make the second one.
Do you live in Atlanta?
Yes, Sandy
Okay.
Springs. So I went to Fulton County, but I had to go to Alpharetta, which is crazy. It's a long drive, but okay, what the heck. So if you go on the website, the Fulton or Dunwoody, or Cobb County, or whichever county you're in, if you go onto the healthcare website, you'll see the sign up, but they're only doing 2 weeks at a time because they're not sure of supplies, which is nuts to me. And because they're only doing 2 weeks at a time, there's not a lot of appointments, right? There's only 20 per day or something, and you're competing with 10,000 other people. So it's a bit of a mess, to say the least. But you got to be patient. Go online, you can be patient.
Well, Emory sent out an email.
Right.
I did yesterday register with them, but of course it was very vague about
it was
when they.
I got it too, and I thought, this is Emory. This thing just adds more confusion. It was basically just more excuses of we haven't got enough, and maybe we can help you. The best is to go to the counties, and if you can get it in your county, nobody seems to mind if you go to a different county, right?
Oh.
So you can go to Athens or Rome, Georgia, or whatever. Obviously, those are too far away, but you can go to any of the counties in Atlanta, and you may be luckier than in your own county.
But I'm assuming that you have to have an appointment with those other counties as well, right?
Well, that's it. When you go to Cobb County's, healthcare or whatever it's called,
oh,
you mean look it up.
Okay.
It'll say, okay, we have appointments on next Thursday, and you click. If you're lucky and you click on it in time, you might get 10:30 next Thursday, or it may say sorry, or they're all gone already, right? In which case you just have to be patient and come back. But rather than just wait around, I suggest everybody tries the other counties. Go and look them all up, and if you've got transportation, even outside Atlanta. You can go to other cities, Rome and Athens, and I know somebody who went down to Valdosta, which is like a couple of hours drive, right? But they managed to get an appointment down there because there are fewer people and they had enough doses, so they were happy to take additional people.
Wow.
But it should start improving now, because they did say previously they were holding back half the vaccines for the second round. Now they're just releasing them all, which I think is the correct thing to do. In my view, it's better to have 100 people who've had one shot than to have 40 people who've had 2 shots, right? So they're now it should be improving a lot.
I'm hoping that in a couple of weeks there won't be such a bottleneck, and that
one would hope so. One would hope so, right?
That I'll be able to go in.
We don't know.
And not have to drive and
It's a mess. I mean,
it is.
I just look at this and I shake my head because they're making all kinds of excuses, you know, it's a big job and this and that. I say, guys, you knew in October this was coming. Why were you
Exactly.
not planning it in October? You know, if your son is getting married on the 1st of March, do you start planning it on this, you know, February the 24th? You start 6 months before, start thinking about it. If you want to,
Yeah.
you know, buy a new house, you don't do it on Monday and move on Tuesday.
Right.
Life doesn't work that way. Why
Or
they do? I don't understand this because it is
click
a
your
rocket science.
heels and hope that everything will fall in place.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
do
called,
that.
I call it the chicken without the head syndrome. You know, you chop off the chicken's head and it's running around without a head. Well, that's what our people seem to be doing in all the states.
Yeah, that's what it, well, I hope to get mine soon.
Well,
And
good.
I'll let you know how it turned out. See you
Good.
next week, guys.
Indeed. Have a great weekend, guys. Like I always say, stay negative. Bye-bye.
Before you
Bye.
leave, I have a quick question.
Sure, I'm going to stay online for another few minutes if there are any questions or comments.
Oh,
or whatever.
okay.
Go ahead.
It's just that the slides, is it any way you can make the slides larger? I was trying to get my lighting right. I got to watch that Zoom video. Because your face is dark. But
the font, you're talking about the font?
no, the slide itself, can it be larger and our picture smaller? The slide.
You mean the screen, the Zoom screen?
Uh-huh.
No.
Okay,
I think you have
It's
to do
controlled
that
by
with
Zoom.
your
I
own.
actually don't have any control over it at all. It's
I have to do it.
You have to do it through your own device.